Hey everybody, welcome back to the Midnight Paint and Body YouTube channel. On this video today, we're just going to be doing a small repair on the ravioli. So I didn't have anything really cool to make a video for you this week, but had this little job in, so it's just a basic repair. May as well record the process and kind of show you guys what's involved. Maybe it'll help someone out along the way. So this here is a little Toyota RAV4, which has been named the Ravioli. I did a complete paint job on this little rig a couple of years ago. The customers had a slight little fender bender, so nothing major. We've got a pretty good little dent in the quarter panel. It's dented down the bottom there. And this bumper end, now if you watch my videos, you know I'm not afraid to repair plastic. I do it all the time. But it always boils down to, you know, repair cost versus replace cost. In this case, you know, this thing's pretty tweaked. It's torn up in here. You know, that'd be 3-4 hours repair. At my shop rate, you know, 4 hours repair is $300. So, priced out a new one. Haven't even taken it out of the packaging yet. So, new aftermarket part was about $300. So that's the way we chose to go on this one. I'm gonna try to set the camera down here. Hopefully this is the correct part. So now people ask me about these parts all the time. Obviously you could probably get this from Toyota if they're still available. I didn't price it out through Toyota. Probably a whole lot more money than what this cost. These aftermarket parts I get through LKQ Canada. People say all the time, you know, where's the best place to order from? Where's the best online place to order from? Just go to your auto parts store. Any auto parts store can typically get all of these parts. You can get pretty much anything for anything these days from the aftermarket. And it's not like the old days where it was all junk. These are good parts these days. I never have trouble with them. So yeah, so these are, I don't even know what the number is on this one, but this is a TO, so Toyota 1116103. So that would be the aftermarket parts number, just in case you ever needed this. And left side to the other side is probably 1102. So anyway, that out of the way, let's start just doing a quick little bit of tear down on this thing and see what we're working with. Okay, so I was going to take the tail light out, hoping to have access to this little dent, but it turns out double walled in there. You can't get to it through there anyway. And being that you got to take all the interior panels off to take the tail light out, I decided just to leave it in. We'll just mask it because that's fine on this job. But we do have access up through this vent hole. So obviously you can't swing a hammer up in there. So I've just got a steel dolly and I'm just going to kind of start bumping this out a little bit. Now with any dent, you don't want to just start wailing on it, trying to bang it out in one hit. That never works. It's going to stretch the heck out of your metal. So always just try and work it out slowly. And of course, that dent there, it's pushed the metal up. So we have a high ridge around the top, so we're going to need to bring that down. there you can see I have just taken, in this case, just a small 36 grit disc on my little grinder. It gives the body filler a nice tooth to bite into, so you've got that fairly deep scratch in the metal that it's going to really adhere to. And then I like to feather it back a bit with some 100 grit just to just clean it up a bit before filler. Now, if you watch my videos, I've talked about this before. Body filler is a funny thing. Everyone uses it different. To me, body filler should never ever go onto your paint. So that's why I always like to feather it back. And in this case, you know, I'll just be filling out to basically to the edge of the paint, but by the time I sand it back, I'm going to have that kind of ridge of bare metal around it is usually what I kind of shoot for. And that is, for me, that's just an experience thing. I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing it long enough that, you know, I've seen work that I have done 10 and 15 and 20 years later. And if you get your body filler onto your paint, that's where you're going to get shrinkage. Just something I've always seen. You may have a different opinion, and that's fine. I'm just telling you the way I do things. But if you get your filler onto that paint over time, it's going to shrink back, and you're going to see that ring through your paint. So that is just something I always try and avoid. I like to see metal around the repair, and then you get some metal etching primer, whether it's epoxy primer or whatever you're using, and then some urethane high build primer on top that's going to level all that off. So anyway, that being said, let's go mix up a little bit of body filler and we'll get it on there. So body filler again is personal preference. Of course, like anything, you get what you pay for. If you buy the absolute cheapest stuff, you're going to spend more time sanding, and you know, it's harder to sand and maybe gum up your sandpaper or whatever it is. There are really expensive fillers, which are great. I find this one's a good middle of the road. This is just what I like, this Evercoat Z-Grip. It's actually a really good price, and I really like it. So again, just kind of, you know, not sponsored, anything like that. I'm just kind of showing you guys what I like and what works for me. Don't go globbing a whole ton of hardener in. It doesn't take much. There's always recommendations on the can or on their websites or whatever. I find if you're adding more hardener to try and make it kick faster, that will typically make your body filler more brittle. And when you're stirring it, I like to fold it, smear it out. I mean, if you're stirring your filler, I find that can work air into it. You're going to get more pinholes in your finished product. I find by folding it and smashing it out, you're kind of pushing any air bubbles out before you're applying it to your vehicle. So, let's go put it on there. All right, let's see where we can put the camera. Just clip it right on there. And of course, you're wanting to kind of make sure it's squeezed in good to those tooth marks that we've put in there. I tend to apply it a little heavy. Going to be sanding most of it off, but it's better than reapplying filler, in my opinion. And as you can see, I mixed about 3 times as much as what I actually needed. But that's how I roll. That's what I do. I like to keep Evercoat in business by wasting body filler, apparently. So anyway, that's going to take, 10 minutes, and we'll be ready to sand. So I always like to run like a feather, fold up the edge of my tape around the edge of the primer. If you're just going to have that hard edge and primer right up against it, it's hard to get that sanded smooth again if you've got primer right up to it, because as you're taking the primer down, once that's off, then you're also taking down the paint on the other edge of the primer. So it's hard to get that a nice level surface. So I find just a little bit of extra tape and doing that little feather edge will save you that problem. I mean, it's not necessary if I was masked back to here and only prime into there, that's fine, but in this case we're just kind of keeping her small. So in this case, because it's just a small area, I'm just going to use some of this aerosol etching primer for the bare metal before we put our high build urethane on. There are some high build urethane primers that are direct to metal where you can just go right over that. I don't typically trust them on something small like this. I might do it, but on a lot of the kind of like restoration type stuff and rust repair stuff that I do, I'd rather have a good epoxy primer prior to the high build urethane. So let's head over to the paint bench and mix up a little high build urethane. So I would normally pull this right into the paint booth just to do that little bit of primer, but in this case I've got the fans going in here, so it's going to pull everything through. I just don't feel like pushing this Nova out of here right now, but we'll move it around later when we're ready to do some painting. So in this case I'm going to be using this UPull high build urethane primer. Pretty straightforward. This is just 4:1. That's just a really small amount. We don't need much for a small repair like this. So we're ready to put on a little high build. So probably what I'll be doing is giving it 2, maybe see how much primer I have in the gun, maybe a 3rd coat. So 2 or 3 coats of the high build urethane, like 5-10 minutes in between coats. And then I'll probably throw a heat lamp on it, and a couple hours from now we'll be prepping it. So here's the little prep trick. When I've got heat on the panel, it's been 45 minutes or so, it's probably fine to sand. But I always like to break open the top surface of the primer and then keep the heat on it. I just feel like that allows the solvents and stuff to come out a little easier. So So I blocked out the primer with some 220 grit, and then I ran over it with the machine with some 320 grit. Now I'm gonna finish just by hand sanding with some 400 grit. Now there's another little tip for your prep work, and I can't stress this enough. The 100 grit rule. Never switch grits by more than 100 on your finishing work or your body work. If you were to go right from that 220 grit right to this 400 grit, you're not going to get those deep scratches out. It's going to show up in your paint job. So always keep that in mind, 100 grit at a time. So the next step in our prep process is going to be sanding the rest of this panel with 800 grit. So the reason we're doing that, we are putting paint, obviously, over the repair area. The paint gets blended out, the rest of the panel gets clear coated. So there's a reason we do it that way. I say this all the time in my videos, but with modern colors, with these micro flakes, pearls, they are not designed to butt match. If you're to paint right to that edge, even though I painted this car, chances are it's not going to be 100% matched to the adjoining panel because of the pearls and the way they flip and flop. So we put the color on, we blend it out, and then we clear the panel. That way we're not putting color right to the adjoining panel. Masked up, washed down, ready to start putting some paint on it. Well, actually first, I guess I didn't go over the plastic with you guys. So this is a new piece and it's raw plastic, meaning it's got no primer on it. So this part is going to need plastic adhesion promoter and then urethane sealer before paint. So I'm just gonna get everything tacked for any last little bits of dust. I'm going to start putting some primer on this, and then we'll move on to paint. So here's our little Toyota all ready to go. Well, almost ready to go. Just needs a little wipe down, wash the windows in the morning. But she's all put together and it's like it never happened, so. So let me know in the comments, guys, if you find this kind of thing helpful. It's just a small little repair job, but I figured it might help some guys out if they're wanting to get into this stuff or try their hand at it, or just curious about what's involved in this kind of repair. So as always, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't hit subscribe, just go over and click that little button and do that, and then go down to the comments and yeah, just leave me a comment what you think of the video, what else you would like to see, what you would like to see more of, less of, done differently, or, you know, just leave me a comment and say, hey, how's it going? Okay, as always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you come back for the next one.